Yes, people, welcome back to the mufcMPB channel. It is your boy, Kempy, and we're here today to talk about the managerial merry-go-round and who could potentially be coming into Manchester United. The favourite, as it looks, is Thomas Tuchel. So giving you all my thoughts on that one and the news stories coming out of that, and a few transfer bits at the very end of today's video as well. So make sure to lock yourselves in, and we'll get right into the news. Yes, then, so we're getting into news of Thomas Tuchel to kick things off, and this is from Christian Falk via Sports Business, and it's that Tuchel wants to go to the island, obviously meaning the UK. He's hotly tipped to be at Manchester United, which is very, very interesting. It's obviously a very big source, being Christian Falk, obviously a massive cover of Bayern Munich, and obviously must have links into Thomas Tuchel as the Bayern Munich manager, and he is confirming that Tuchel would like to come back to England, and he's hotly tipped to join Manchester United. And carrying on one of these stories from Sacha Volier, is one of the leaders of Manchester United had held talks with Thomas Tuchel's agent, and this is a story we've seen for the last few days come up, and I don't think it's something that's going away. When a story comes up first time, you sort of give it a little look. When it's a couple of weeks and it's constant stories about Thomas Tuchel to Manchester United, there's talks of Jim Ratcliffe having talks of him, actually him being the number one on our list. I think it's very interesting. The fact that someone like Christian Falk is coming out and Sacha Volier are coming out and talking about this is extremely, extremely interesting. Now, Thomas Tuchel, for me, we're going to jump to his Wikipedia page. It is a manager I am very, very interested in. Obviously, come up through the ranks at Mainz as an early coach before going to Dortmund, where he done very, very well over there. PSG, it seemed to be where we sort of started to really see Thomas Tuchel in the limelight of the media, and you know, he obviously wins the league in Liga, and it's fair enough. He actually exited PSG with the best ever percentage as a manager. But the main thing that we started seeing his tenure at PSG was his disagreements with the board. Now, this is something that I think is interesting because we're coming with a brand new board and they're picking him to be their first manager. So it's really showing that trust and that faith in Thomas Tuchel to come in and be the gaffer and to you know, control this Manchester United team. Often it's, you know, he's put into place and he's not given the license to do what he wants, and he ends up going into the media, having the backlash with the board, and everything sort of kicks off. I think this deal from Manchester United to get Thomas Tuchel could be something that he's really interested in. It's obvious they enjoyed his time over at Chelsea in England. Obviously, winning the Champions League is absolutely mental, and you start to think of the stories which could happen at Manchester United next season. Probably not going to be in the Champions League, but can he have a season to build up the squad he would like, and then the next season we might not win the league, but Champions League is what he did at Chelsea. It seemed to work really well. Obviously, in the end, getting sacked, which he ended up into a bit of a nightmare, which isn't what you want to see from a manager, but his record is very good. Obviously, he is now going to Bayern Munich, wins the league last year, which is always expected of Bayern Munich. And when you have a season like this, when you have a team like Bayer Leverkusen, who are just simply massively on top of the league, of course it's going to be looked at Thomas Tuchel and his tenure at Bayern Munich being a massive failure. Obviously, it's not great. Knocked out of the DFB Pokal by a smaller team, I believe, in the third tier of Germany, which is difficult. Again, it's one of them historic stories. Sometimes they happen. And I think that's the thing to remember here with Thomas Tuchel. Stuff happens as a manager. You've done a very good job in terms of the season before. Champions League, knocked out. You know, actually in terms of the Bundesliga, just getting dominated by Leverkusen. And it's difficult because Leverkusen are a story this season. So many people absolutely love the story. I think to really have a look at Tuchel, you have to look over his whole career. I think there's a manager there that wants to come into a project and to be that guy, to be the head of things in charge. And I think Thomas Tuchel would get that right at Manchester United. It's someone that I'd be very excited. For me, it probably goes Zidane number one, purely based on the name. I actually don't know if he'd work at Manchester United. At Real Madrid, you look at the players he had, Bale, Benzema and Ronaldo. You're coming into United with Garnacho, Rashford and Højlund, completely different calibre of players. Can he develop players is a question still to be asked, and he's been out of management since then anyway. Obviously that was on his terms, but Thomas Tuchel for me would be number two behind Zidane, and from there I'd actually just stick with Ten Hag if we're not going to get Tuchel. I don't think it's worth going for the Zerbi. I don't think it's worth going for Amorim either. For me, if we're not going to get Tuchel, I'd stick with, or if we're not going to get Zidane or Tuchel, I'd stick with Ten Hag. And we'll get on to Ten Hag in just a little bit in the video as well. But let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of the potential appointment of Thomas Tuchel? Do you think it's something that could work at Manchester United? Could you see him as the Manchester United manager. For me, I actually can. I think it suits him a hell of a lot. And I think it suits United as well. Having a manager that wants to come in, wants to be part of a long-term project and wants to build his club. This is where we could see the Tuchel dynasty really come into play, which would be very, very interesting. But what about our current manager? Well, obviously, we're not talking about Mr. Erik ten Hag. Another sort of disappointing game on the weekend against Burnley, where we looked very open at the back at times. Defensively, we weren't great. Going forward, missed a few big chances. Eventually, obviously, got a goal, but conceded due to a penalty, another mistake from Casemiro and Onana. One of them games again. And it seems to be like, whenever I watch United and I think of this Ten Hag system, I just think there's way too many chances being created, but also just the mistakes that happen on the pitch, the defensive errors. I mean, against Sheffield United, the Onana pass out to the fullback completely misplaced and they scored from it. This one, he just knocks out another player. To be honest, the back part or the back header from Casemiro was absolutely woeful. It just seems to me that there's way too many mistakes. I don't know if it's just a laziness in training. I don't know how it happens. I don't know how a team can have so many mistakes. I don't know where that comes from, but it's just what's happening at United at the moment. And so far, we've got a story from Marcel van der Kraan via TalkSport, is that Ajax technical director Alex Cruz has got Erik ten Hag at the top of his wanted list. I find that very, very interesting. He is the man, and we'll wait for him until the end of May, because by June 1st they have to appoint a manager or make a decision. Now, there's been massive talks with Ajax and Graham Potter. Ten Hag back to Ajax, it just makes sense. In my opinion, it's been tested. We've tried to bring him back in. I think he actually needs to develop as a coach a lot more than we realise. I think the defensive side of his game really needs to improve, and I think that's something which he can improve on for sure. Remember, he is still quite a young coach in his sort of early to mid 40s. I think if we not that he's come back to United, of course, but for him as a coach, I think leaving United, going back to Ajax, really getting a craft on your game, a bit of a project now to get Ajax back to the top of the Eredivisie, because they are behind Feyenoord, behind PSV. I mean, it's a difficult road. It's not like he's going to go back in and be the dominant side straight away. He's got to build that squad. He's got to prove in a system that can defend. And whereas with Ajax previously, it was more like just attack and vibes and just dominate teams. He tried to bring that to England with United, and it's not worked at all. I think it's a very good thing for him. Go to Ajax, get your craft back together. And I can see him. I think one of his dream jobs is Bayern Munich. He was there as the under-21 coach. I can see him end up there in a few years. Obviously, at the moment, it looks like they're going to get Ralf Rangnick. So it seems to be where the Man United rejects seem to go somehow, because Bayern Munich is such a well-run club. But I think Ralf Rangnick's appointment there is a decent appointment. I think in the years down the line, Ten Hag could still be a top-level manager. I do think maybe we're looking at things being a bit too early for him to be at that top stage. But it's interesting, by the 1st of June, they've got to make the decision. I would like to think that we sort of know what we're going to do by the end of that FA Cup. As soon as the FA Cup game is done, you either go, right, Erik, you're done, goodbye, a bit like with Van Gaal, or we just say, look, we're trusting you for the summer. Next season's yours. Do what you want to do. And he should know. That means Ajax will know. And that means we will know as fans what we're going into next season. I don't want it to be that the FA Cup finishes and we're like, do we keep him? We won it. Regardless if he wins it or lose it, we should have a plan of what we are doing. I don't think it should be a question of we're debating winning an FA Cup. Is it enough to keep him the job? Based on what we've seen this season, I personally don't think so. I think we are way too open at the back. I think tactically, he just needs to go away and develop more. I don't think he's ready for this job. Marcel van der Kraan also saying about, obviously, Ten Hag. There's a lot of stories here today. Erik ten Hag knows about it, as in the Ajax interest. He knows there's an open door at Ajax, and he can be the manager of Ajax next season and try to win a title there again. So there is, like I mentioned, a project at Ajax. There is teams above him, Feyenoord and PSV. PSV, an unbelievable season. Feyenoord looks like Arne Slot is going to Liverpool, which, by the way, I don't think is a great appointment. I think we've sort of showed with Ten Hag as a manager developing in the Netherlands, there's a long way to go to become a top manager in England, and I think it's a big step for Arne Slot indeed. It was something that was actually warned about us as Manchester United fans when we were all so excited about Erik ten Hag coming in, is that managers do not transition very well from the Dutch game to the English game. It's been seen many times, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if Arne Slot can break that trend or not. But obviously, we do know that Ten Hag is looking at that Ajax job it's very obvious. For me, it just makes sense. It's the most sensible thing that can happen from this season for him to just go back to the club that he obviously loves and that have loved him. It makes sense. Mike Verweij on whether Ajax, Mike Verweij on whether Ten Hag is interested in return to Ajax. I think so. Otherwise, you won't keep on your shortlist. It's as simple as that. We talk about with transfer signings. It's the exact same with manager appointments. He will have so many contacts at Ajax, as we know from him signing Leitcher, Anthony, and Onana from there. Well, not Onana from there, from Inter, but having them Ajax players coming in. He obviously has very good contacts at Ajax. He is obviously still adored over there. He was a fantastic manager. He won them the title again and was so dominant. Semi-finals of the Champions League. I genuinely think him going back there would be so good for him, so good for Ajax as well. They need that bit of stability back, and I think it's just something that makes so much sense. Mike Verweij again, and the information we have is that Graham Potter is not number one at Ajax. Now, I have touched on that story. Graham Potter is heavily linked to that Ajax job, but he's not number one. Ajax want Erik ten Hag, and Alex Kroos also wants to wait for that opportunity. It's a game, it's a kind of poker game, but Ten Hag is definitely the number one option. Again, Mike Verweij via Voetbalzen in Netherlands. Obviously a story over there that's coming out. So it's interesting coming directly from the Netherlands of this interest of Ten Hag. It's very understandable for me. It makes a lot of sense that he could potentially end up back at Ajax. But that is enough on the manager merry-go-round. We're looking at Thomas Tuchel potentially coming into Manchester United from Christian Volk. Tuchel wants to go to the island. He's hotly tipped at Manchester United. I think it's the one that makes the most sense. He's obviously out of a job at Bayern Munich, knows how to manage big players, knows how to manage a big club. I like the sound of Tommy Tickles. Let me know down below. And one of the leaders of Manchester United has held talks with Thomas Tuchel as well. That is from Sasha Talvieri. And the story from Mitchell van der Kraan via TalkSport is that Ajax's technical director Alex Kroos has got Ten Hag at the top of his wanted list. He is the man and will wait for him until the end of May because by June the 1st they have to appoint a manager and make that decision. He also goes on to say that Erik ten Hag knows about it, is in the Ajax interest. He knows there's an open door at Ajax and he can be the manager of Ajax next season and try to win a title there again. Mike Verweij on the story of Erik ten Hag being interested in return to Ajax. I think so. Otherwise, you won't keep him on that shortlist. The information we have is that Graham Potter is not number one at Ajax. Ajax want Erik ten Hag, and Alex Kroos also wants to wait for that. It's a kind of poker game, but Ten Hag is definitely the number one option. Do you think this is a good thing for Manchester United? Do you think it's a good thing for Ten Hag? Do you think it's a good thing for Ajax? Let me know down below. Time to get into the two stories we have left in terms of transfers, and it's from Samuel Luckhurst as well. Justin, Manchester United are eyeing two centre-back signings in the summer, which is very interesting. It probably means that Varane is going to leave at the end of the season. Transfer window, Jared Branthwaite and Edmund Tapsoba are among the players United have tracked to address their porous defence. As a great way to describe our defence at the moment. I think Jared Branthwaite makes a lot of sense. A young English left-footed centre-back who has showed some real quality at Everton this season. Even the goal-scoring touch against Liverpool. But I think defensively, he's absolutely fantastic. And I genuinely think it's such a good sign. And it makes sense as well as a United sort of player to come in at that age. Can still rotate with Leitcher as them two left-footed centre-backs. And I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense to bring in Jared Branthwaite. And I hope it's what we do. Edmund Tapsoba as well is a top-level centre-back. Obviously at Bayer Leverkusen this season, they are unbeaten in every single competition, if you don't know, which I think everyone does at this point. But I think it's a fantastic signing. Again, both young, both quality centre-backs, and both can ball play as well. Great ball playing abilities on the both of them, and that is from Samuel Luckhurst. Manchester United are also interested in Ronald Araujo. If an important offer arrives for Araujo this summer, Barcelona are doing a deal. I think it's something we know with Barcelona. They are willing to sell players. They have to be willing to sell players because they haven't got a lot of money in the bank. Obviously, we're looking at Frankie de Jong as well, I imagine, again to come in to that sixth role. If Ten Hag does leave, I can see that story going away. But if Ten Hag stays, I can see it potentially being an interesting option for Frankie de Jong to come to Manchester United. But this one is about Ronald Araujo, very fast, right-footed centre-back. Can also fill in that right back if we have another injury crisis. But I think it's a decent signing. I think he'll be quite expensive. I imagine if we're looking at Branthwaite, it's going to be 50 to 60. Tapsoba, 40 to 50. I think Araujo could again be in that 50 to 60 range. But could we strike a deal because of Barcelona's financial situation? You never know. Make sure you're following the channel over on Twitter, mufcMPB, the place for all your Manchester United news. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel as well and liking the video, and come over and check out my Football Manager channel, which will be linked down below. A massive thank you for watching the video, and I'll speak to you next time.